I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is the Democratic debate.
And that little girl was me.
Kamala Harris with the most buzzworthy moments in a feisty, freewheeling two-night event. Here to break it all down, campaign experts Bob Shrum, Areva Martin, and Caroline Heldman. Plus, raise their hand if you thought Joe Biden won the debate tonight. Nobody. Speak to a focus group of undecided voters. Were they swayed by anyone? And Ann Coulter is here to talk about the debate, immigration. The issue is starts right now. And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson on a landmark week in the race for the Democratic nomination, the first Democratic debate. It's such a big week. We've assembled some of our all-time favorite panelists to break it down. So here they are. Bob Shrum, one of the most experienced and respected Democratic political consultants in the entire country. Some of his past clients include John Kerry, Al Gore, Ted Kennedy, George McGovern, Dick Gephardt, and more. He's now co-director of the USC Center for the Political Future with another Issue Is favorite, Republican Mike Murphy. Areva Martin is back. She's an attorney, activist, TV host, and author. Her latest book is titled Make It Rain: How to Use the Media to Revolutionize Your Business and Brand. Hopefully she's not using us today, but she's here. Areva recently joined Vivica A. Fox on a national talk show to tell the truth. Caroline Heldman teaches politics at Occidental College. Her latest book is called Sex and Gender in the 2016 Presidential Election. Welcome back, everybody. Great to have you here. What a week, huh?
Ooh, what a week.
So let's talk about the debate. The moment getting the most buzz from the debate is Kamala Harris taking on Joe Biden over the issue of buses and the issue of race.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision. So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
What do we make of that moment, Bob?
I don't think Joe Biden was terribly well prepared for that. I think he had a much better answer. He could have done what Pete Buttigieg did when he was very candid about what's going on in South Bend and said, look, I didn't think that busing should have been a federal mandate. I think it should have been done by local communities. And then gone on to talk about the other part of her attack, which was that he'd said nice things about segregation of senators, which was not exactly what had happened. To say, look, if you hadn't, for example, had George McGovern talk with Jesse Helms, there'd be millions of people in this country without food stamps. They'd go hungry every night. He just didn't seem crisp, didn't seem to know where he wanted to take his answer, and he seemed very much on the defensive.
Areva, you're a bit of a supporter of Kamala.
Yeah, I am a supporter of Senator Harris, and I make that disclosure. But I'm also a student of politics, and I've been watching the race, not just for Harris, but all of the candidates that participated in day one and day two. And like Bob, I was really disappointed in our vice president. It seemed like to me he had not done any homework. This issue of the statements he made with respect to the segregation as senators, that was new. He knew that that issue was out there. He knew that there was going to be a question on that issue either by the moderators of the debate or by the other candidates.
And there's a good answer.
Well, whatever his answer is, we didn't hear it last night, and he seemed to just stumble and have a really difficult time being clear, crisp, and concise about his position. Now, I think Kamala made a great point. Nobody thinks Joe Biden is a racist, but in this era where race is such an important part of this whole conversation we're having, I expected to have a better answer from our vice president.
Caroline.
Well, absolutely. Joe Biden, met the pain of a black woman with a denial that he supported a policy which he clearly did. If anybody knows their history, the way in which you were able to skirt the laws, skirt the civil rights movement, was to shift it down to the local level and then not enforce it. And so he was disingenuous. He misled anyone who knew what he was talking about. But beyond all of that, he couldn't meet her pain with that response. Not only did he blow that moment, but he handed Kamala Harris, perhaps the most significant moment in the entire debate so far.
All right, let's talk about the other moment that was getting a lot of attention on the issue of race. That was Mayor Pete. He just is back from dealing with a situation in South Bend, Indiana, where he's mayor, where a black man was shot by a white cop. There's been a lot of controversy there. Here's what he had to say.
The police force in South Bend is now 6% black in a city that is 26% black. Why has that not improved over your 2 terms as mayor?
Because I couldn't get it done.
Areva, that the right way to go?
Well, I think Mayor Pete has faced the biggest challenge of his career as a presidential candidate, and I think he's doing the best job that he can do. I wish he had gotten it done. I wish he had done more on the issue of race. I don't think he would be having the problem that he's having with African-American voters that if he had done more. But don't deny it. I mean, you just got to embrace it, face it, stand in it. He hasn't done more. But I think it raises a real issue for him. Some of the other candidates can talk about what they will do as an executive. Guess what? He's already an executive. So if he wants us to believe that he has the ability to be the president and make those tough decisions, his record on race in that town doesn't speak well to that.
And Caroline, it's one of the things for like Joe Biden, he's got a 40, 50-year record on civil rights. Mayor Pete doesn't have as long of a record to talk about.
Absolutely. And the record that he does have is a lot of back and forth over the years with black residents who don't think he's doing a good job. So this is a moment where it was really refreshing for him to say, yes, I made a mistake. We rarely hear that in campaigns. Candidates don't make themselves that vulnerable. If that is where it ended, it would have been great for him. But then Hickenlooper jumped in and said, you know, why haven't you done something since Ferguson? It's been years. And then Swalwell jumped in and said, why didn't you fire the police chief? He didn't have a response to that. So this is going to be his Achilles heel moving forward in this election.
Bob, you're the messaging guy. You've helped these candidates for decades on messaging. What did you make of his decision to do the anti-Trump thing? Trump denies everything, never takes responsibility. He's sort of leaning in.
I think at least for purposes of this debate, that first line was the whole answer. I couldn't get it done. No politician does that. I mean, they start off with an excuse, I didn't really mean this, or I tried to do this. The truth is he is hemmed in by a lot of factors, local factors in South Bend. But that was not the core of what he did here. Core of what he did here was to be honest and straightforward and not make an excuse and then talk about the anguish of the family whose son had been shot.
Another big question coming out of the debate is this issue of, did the Democratic Party go too far to the left on a few big issues, one of them being health care for those here undocumented? Let's go to this moment.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Caroline, you've looked at polling. I mean, are the Democrats going too far to the left, and could that hurt them in the general election?
Well, certainly there's not a majority public support for offering health care to people who are here illegally, even though technically that is precisely what we're doing in this country.
Because they go to emergency rooms and they get health care.
Emergency rooms, the Hippocratic Oath kicks in. There is 56% support amongst Americans for universal health care, meaning health care for all. They're certainly going further to the left than the general public voting, but not the Democratic Party. So this will help them in the primary, but it might harm them in the general with independent voters.
I mean, that's what President Trump was tweeting out about that particular moment. The Republicans think that was a big win for them.
I think that for Trump to keep banging the drum about undocumented people, about illegal immigrants, and then folding it into the health care issue, he's going to one of his weakest points. He has no credibility on health care. And the truth is that people are getting treated. They're getting treated in emergency rooms. And beyond that, if you don't treat them, people become a public health menace because they get a contagious disease and no one takes care of it. Now, I don't know that the debate will ever get to that point. I think it will be Trump saying, you want to give this away to undocumented people? I'm totally against that. These people need to leave.
Yeah, and it's very clear that as it relates to primary voters, the Democratic primary voters, I think this is a win-win issue for them, particularly given what we're witnessing on the borders. And so there's such sensitivity around how poorly the Trump administration is managing the whole immigration crisis, and those visuals of kids in cages and kids without toilet paper, toothpaste, soap.
Kid drowning.
Oh, that image of that father and his daughter. Those are such searing images that I think anybody that didn't raise their hand on that question probably was going to really take a beating from their constituents.
So let's go around the horn real quickly, if you could. Who do you think gained the most from the debate, and who do you think lost the most from the debate?
I think the stars last night were Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. The night before was Elizabeth Warren.
I think last night definitely Harris was the best, she had the best performance, I think, of her entire candidacy. I think Mayor Pete had a good performance. And the first night, I think that Castro was clearly the winner of the first night of the debate.
Castro, Booker made up a lot of ground in the first debate, but Warren obviously was the strongest contender. Last night, it was Harris. I think that Biden held, Buttigieg held. I think Swalwell's probably out, and Gillibrand. I mean, we pruned a bit, but it was really Harris and Warren, these first two debates.
I think Biden probably lost ground last night. I don't think he held anything. I think he did a great disservice to his campaign, and I'm really curious to see what the new polling numbers are, because I think he's going to take a big bump downward with respect to his poll numbers.
People have been predicting that for months about Biden, that when he announced he would go down, it didn't happen. He's got a lot of support in the African-American community, a lot of credibility on civil rights in the African-American community. I think his bigger problem is going to be if he's not sharp in subsequent debates, if he's muddy, as he often was last night, people are going to begin to wonder whether or not he actually fills the role that our USC Dornsife LA Times poll showed. People thought he was the person most likely to beat Trump. They'll begin to question that assumption.
And I think that's a good point about what Harris did last night. Her campaign and her performance on that debate stage showed that she is one of the candidates and one of the top candidates that can, stand toe-to-toe with Trump and can beat Trump. And that's always, I think, been a question about her candidacy.
And I think a lot of people thought watching that they could visualize her now on a stage with President Trump, which was a big accomplishment for her campaign. Absolutely. So as we head to break right now, we want to bring in Khalid with a little talk, because that's really what this is all about, right? There's a lot more to talk about with this great panel. Plus, we're going to talk with a focus group of undecided California voters about the debate. Were they swayed by anyone? Later, Ann Coulter's with us as well. Stay with us. More of The Issue Is right after this. You like this jam? Yeah.
He was just
from Southern California to the Bay Area. You're watching The Issue Is.
I just think it's a mistake, Bethel. I think it's a mistake. And I think that if you truly want to change the system, then we got to repeal that section. If not, then it might as well be the same policy.
Let me respond to this very briefly. Actually, as a member of Congress, I helped to introduce legislation that would ensure that we don't criminalize those who are seeking asylum and refuge in this country. If you're fleeing desperation, then I want to make sure that you're treated with respect.
All the candidates were hoping for all eyes on them during the two-night debate event. But did any of their messages really get through? We assembled a group of undecided voters to watch the debates here with us and then react right afterwards. Raise your hand if you thought that Kamala Harris won the debate tonight.
I'll give her that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, 4 of you. Raise your hand if you think that Pete Buttigieg won the debate tonight. Yeah. 1 person, 2. Raise their hand if you thought Joe Biden won the debate tonight. Nobody. Joe Biden came into tonight as the front runner. Let's go around the horn. 1 word to describe Joe Biden's performance in the debate tonight.
Disappointing.
Safe.
Overly confident, I guess, yeah.
I think he's too relaxed.
Yeah.
Too comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was safe.
1 word to describe Kamala Harris's performance in the debate tonight. Let's start with you, Carmel.
I thought she was dynamic.
Assertive.
Aggressive.
Prepared.
Punchy.
Yeah, I'd have to say prepared.
And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
She hit him every single way that she could. I mean, if this was a boxing match, she'd be on the mat right now, count at 10, he's done.
That moment was very touching to me because my brothers and I were the only Asian kids in our school, in elementary school. So when she was talking about the busing thing, it really meant, it really touched me as just a regular person.
Mm-hmm. When I see her do that, this is something that her and her consultants rehearsed, and probably rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. No doubt she landed a punch, but I think he retorted well. I think there was another second moment here, and that was when Buttigieg was talking about, race and the issue that he's dealing with in the city.
The police force in South Bend is now 6% black in a city that is 26% black. Why has that not improved over your 2 terms as mayor?
Because I couldn't get it done.
I mean, that was, for me, a lot more powerful because it seemed far more sincere than the canned remark that Kamala Harris had.
The interesting moment when Harris talked about the busing thing, what else she was doing subliminally was she was suggesting that Joe Biden was old. Because she was a little girl while he was a senator voting on this, and that he's been around on this issue for 40 years in public life. Eric Swalwell made that point not so subtly.
Joe Biden was right when he said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans 32 years ago. He's still right today.
Frankly, I think that a lot of the criticisms of people like Bernie and Biden are unfounded. I think they're profoundly ageist.
Raise your hand if you think that Joe Biden is too old to be president. Raise your hand if you think Bernie Sanders is too old to be president. So that's not a concern for you folks.
No, Biden's not exciting. He's almost like a plant in the room. And you know, he with Bernie on the other hand, he's exciting. He excites the younger voters.
Biden hasn't participated in all the events that other candidates have, as if he's already won the nomination. And what I think these candidates who have shared the stage with him tonight are showing, no, you haven't. We're putting up a real fight, and I think they've done that very effectively.
Who is the strongest person against Donald Trump in a debate? Did that change for you tonight? Anybody change in terms of your perception?
No. It's going to be Kamala, though, because Kamala is everything that Trump does not want to deal with. You know, he's always going against women, and she's a woman of color.
She is also someone who can really bring in your thoughts, your heart, and motivate.
That's a prosecutor in her.
So some of the
leader.
Raise your hand if you thought of both nights that Mayor Pete did the best.
He's in the top
really?
ranking.
4 people thought that Mayor Pete did the best of all the nights.
He's ranking.
Why is that?
He had the empathy and the sincerity in what he was saying.
And I love the fact that Mayor Pete brings up our democracy as a mode of change for his campaign.
Yeah. So who went into this undecided? Raise your hand, for the most part. Who's now decided? So we're still undecided. We still got time. They still are able to convince you.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Long time to go. More reason to watch The Issue Is, right? And stay informed every week. Back with our panel, Bob Shrum, Areva Martin, Caroline Heldman. What did you guys make of what they had to say? What'd you think?
Well, look, I think they reflect pretty much what we said up here before. Yeah. Kamala Harris did very well. Pete Buttigieg did very well. Elizabeth Warren did very well. One thing that's interesting about this in terms of Biden is the next debate is at the end of July. Yeah. His expectations are now going to be much lower. And that's actually an advantage for him. If he prepares, if he anticipates the lines of attack, and if he comes back sharply, he'll be in strong position again.
That's the big question. What's next? What should people be looking for in the next couple months?
The candidates like Harris and Warren and Castro and Mayor Pete, who had great performances during these debates, they've got to now translate that into votes. Because likability is one thing, but this isn't a popularity contest. You know, you've got to have people that will go into those voting booths and vote for them. And obviously campaigns are about money because you need a lot of money to finance them. So, you know, how does this impact the June 30th reporting that we're going to see in the next week or so? So I think these candidates have to figure out how to translate their momentum from the debate into real action on the ground.
I think what comes next is some more pruning, right? So these early debates are really about, well, 2 things. One, about people who are kind of in the middle of the pack making their mark. And I actually don't think Buttigieg did that. I didn't think he was very dynamic. I didn't think he broke out like Castro or Booker the previous night. But also it's about other candidates, you know, kind of falling by the wayside, if you will. So folks like, for example, Gillibrand, who I thought would do much better, failed to distinguish herself. I don't know how many tries these candidates get, but it's going to happen early on. So what we expect, I think, in July is folks like de Blasio, who just don't have anything to lose, who go much harder after the front runners than what we saw in these last 2 debates.
But by the way, one cautionary note, the clear winner of the first Democratic debate in 2003 by a pretty big margin was Howard Dean.
So you're telling us don't get too excited,
no, I'm saying you got to wait.
Okay.
And this is
no, you're right. This is a long
that focus group was right when you said, are they still undecided? And they said, yeah, I'm still undecided.
And your guy, John Kerry, of course, ended up winning that
And there
race.
is a debate like every month from September to April for these candidates. So we're going to get to see
and of course,
them a lot.
And of course, many of them are appearing right here on our show as well. We want to encourage you to stream our newest podcast. It is a sit-down with Bob Shrum about his 5 decades in politics, amazing behind-the-scenes stories, insight on the current race. All of our past podcasts available wherever you stream, including one with Areva. We got to get Caroline to do one. Just search for The Issue Is. We have a past sit-down with Ann Coulter as well. She is our next guest. She's going to be joining us to talk about Democratic debate, immigration, and more. Stay with us. You're watching The Issue Is.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
You're listening to Power is Power. And of course, power at the heart of the debate, and one of the most powerful Republicans in the country is with us. Ann Coulter is back. She is a 13 times New York Times best-selling author. Her latest book is called Resistance is Futile: How the Trump-Hating Left Lost Its Collective Mind. And speaking of powerful, Ann was on our highest-rated show, our most shared Facebook video, our most shared YouTube video, and our #1 podcast. So welcome back to The Issue Is. Clearly people enjoy her appearances, or at least if they don't, they still like listening to it. Good to have you back. Let's talk about the debate. You watched it as somebody who is not a Democrat. What was your main takeaway?
I think Democrats have to get out of the room and talk to some more normal people. I'm quite annoyed with Donald Trump right now. You would think that I'd be picking who's the worst Democrat. That's the one I want to be running. No. I want the strongest Democrat for 2 reasons. One, maybe it will, if Trump feels a little heat, maybe he'll finally keep his promises. But number 2, the Democrat could win. I do care about my country. And wow, I mean, I think I'd be feeling pretty comfortable if I were Trump just on Julian Castro saying that transgenders have a right to abortion. I'd be running that the night before the election and just say, okay, I'm done. Without anyone on the stage laughing, saying, what on earth are you talking about? That's crazy. That's crazy, Elex.
Are there any Democrats that you thought, okay, because I know sometimes you're frustrated with the president. You thought maybe, is there anybody that you could maybe support?
Frustration is the most gentle way of putting it. If only he thought it were mere frustration. Yeah. Yes, there is, though. I don't think the conservative media did the Republican Party any favors. Many people won't remember this, but after every Republican debate, 2015, 2016, a certain conservative cable news network would say, well, Rubio won again. It was Rubio. And meanwhile, the Drudge poll shows Trump, 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 Trump. The liberal media is doing not serving the Democratic Party, but almost in the reverse direction. They're pushing the most woke candidates on the Democratic Party. Well, I don't know. If these candidates go out and talk to the makeup artist, I think they'll realize not really that popular to, number one, night 1, yes, we want no border, invite them all in, decriminalize it. Night 2, and we want to give them all free health care.
So who do you like?
Biden.
You like Biden. Why is that?
I thought he, and that's what I noticed last night. I said as soon as the debate was over, they were going to be pushing Kamala. And I thought she came across as very angry and haranguing. And on the busing thing, I mean, for one thing, I'm not sure anyone likes the idea of going back and attacking someone for a vote from 30 years ago, point 1. But if we're going to judge people on votes 30 years ago, they better have been wrong. And busing was an absolute disaster. In fact, Kamala's question, why was she so sad about it? I mean, she acted like I was that child who was. She acts like she's being sent to the concentration camp. No, her point was, I think she was saying, and I'm the beneficiary of this. If I hadn't been bused, and by the way, I want the whole busing thing fact-checked, but assuming this is true, she's supposed to be saying it in like a happy way. Well, I was bused. No, she's like crying. Well, then why are you mad at him for voting against it?
So could you see yourself voting for Joe Biden over Donald Trump?
Possibly.
Really? What would Biden have to do to win your vote?
Well, any of them. What would he have to do? I mean, the simple thing is any candidate who says he will put American jobs first. A weird thing about over any foreigner who comes in and undersells an American worker. The weird thing about the Democrats' pedal to the metal for illegal immigration. And I do, in part, blame Trump for this. He's been very impolitic. But 5 years ago, Obama was pushing for a fence on the border. What they are cheering for is, let's bring in cheap workers for transnational companies and make Americans subsidize that cheap labor. So anybody who is reasonably good on immigration, and I just don't think we're going to be getting the promises out of Trump unless he feels the heat.
So the big story this week, this photo that circulated, and it was very emotional. It's kind of graphic, but we want to show it because it's been shown all over, and it's an important part of the debate, which is this father and child who died while trying to cross into this country. What went through your mind when you saw that?
Well, two things. One is turn off the magnet. As long as you have actually, you know, all these lawyers in the ACLU saying, come, we'll put you on welfare and give you housing and you'll get health care. You're going to have the poor of the world streaming in. It's in the law, it's called an attractive nuisance. We're creating the circumstances where people are going to come here. It isn't a legitimate refugee claim, asylum claim to say, I want a better life. It's supposed to be political persecution for your race.
But just as a human being, what's your reaction
Well,
to that?
as a human being, and then my second point was going to be, I'm a little resentful over the fact that any photos of Americans killed by illegal aliens or the horrible violence from the drug cartels, that'll get you suspended from Twitter. You certainly won't see it on the media. And to have, I mean, these are, it is happening on both sides. We are letting in, with open borders, you're not all getting hard workers who are underselling American workers. You're also getting criminals. You're getting people with diseases. There's no vetting going on. And so there are Americans being killed in horrible ways. Why can't we see those pictures too?
In terms of these ICE raids, the president has talked about the possibility of doing raids and then ended up not having. Talked about the possibility of putting tariffs on Mexico and then didn't happen. Do you think that they're going to happen? Should there be raids?
This is why I want to strangle the president. No, he talks a good game, and he's almost doing the exact opposite of what we'd like, which is talk nicely about this. He's pushed, I mean, I can't blame him. Democrats are being crazy on their own. But he has pushed Democrats into taking a crazy anti-American position in favor of anyone who isn't an American citizen. We have our own poor people. We have our own inner cities. Can we have some free health care for them instead of foreigners running across the border underselling American workers? But what Trump does is he says, you know, he says the tough stuff, and he says it in the most, inciting way, and then he backs down. I mean, it would be not perfect if he said the outrageous comment and then actually did it and helped poor Americans and working class Americans. But no, we get the inciting clause, the inciting words, and then we never get action.
Do you think that immigration has actually gotten worse under President Trump?
Unquestionably. Unquestionably. That's why I would be tempted to vote for somebody. And I think, look, whether I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. But, you know, that's me. I think you're going to get a lot of Trump voters. You could get them to stay home unless the Democrats run somebody who wants, what does Warren want, reparations for gays now? You got Castro pushing for abortion rights for transgenders. You have all of them saying, I'm going to take away your private health insurance. I don't know if there is one single...
No, they're not. They're not all saying that.
The first night?
No, they're not all saying they're going to take away their
private. The first night, they all raised their hands.
No, there were two people.
Sorry, you're right.
2 people, 2 out of 10.
Okay.
So in total...
And who were the two? It was
Elizabeth Warren and...
No, she'd take it away.
Yeah, I did. That said that she would take it away. So the people that said that they want to have universal health care...
It was Delaney, and who was the other one who would...
It was Bill de Blasio and Elizabeth Warren.
All of them but 2 said they'd take it away, didn't they?
Opposite. Only 2 said that they would take it away.
Okay, well then I think Warren's dead in the water, because if there is such a thing as a politically suicidal position, and more than that said it last night, right?
2. And then and Kamala Harris tried to walk it back and say she misheard the question.
Oh yeah, and she didn't mishear the question. I know you're falling for that. I'm not. I'm just talking about you personally, your personal health care. No. What percentage of Americans have private health insurance? And the Democrats are saying, yeah, I'm going to take it away.
180 million Americans.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Leave the debate stage. Trump, stop thinking to yourself, okay, this is going to blow them away. I'm going to rock this audience's world. And then say something completely crazy. Talk to the makeup artist. Talk to the cameraman. See if they think you're crazy.
So your basic point, as a supporter of the president who is in touch with the Trump base, is that some people in the Trump base may be open to voting for somebody else if they don't think that they're so extreme or so to the left.
Well, there are a lot of Trump's voters voted Obama, Trump. I mean, I think the Democrats have an opening here. Frankly, I'd rather keep Trump and have Trump keep his promises, but it's going to take a strong Democratic candidate to get him to keep his promises. We could lose anyway, so I actually want the sanest, best Democrat.
All right, well, coming up next, there's one presidential candidate that Ann Coulter says that she loves, and it's a Democrat. We'll tell you who that is after the break, but first, some music. This is Wagon Wheel, Ann's choice in terms of music. Little Darius Rucker. Back for more of The Issue is right after this.
Join me in ushering in this new century with peace, prosperity, opportunity, and justice for all.
Democrat Tulsi Gabbard won the Drudge Report poll for night one of the debate, getting a lot of love for conservatives online, and one of them is our guest, Ann Coulter. Ann, you say you love Tulsi Gabbard. Why is that?
Well, she's the only genuine anti-war candidate. It's much like immigration. Americans keep voting and voting and voting against constant wars. And we can never get it. We can never get it. I mean, Trump famously, in the South Carolina debate, big military state, in that debate, I don't know if you remember, he starts attacking Jeb for the war in Iraq. He says, your brother lied us into war. Everyone said, oh, he's dead, dead, dead in South Carolina. They're a big military state. He won South Carolina. Trump was the only one who wanted to shut down the border and protect American jobs and lives. He was the only one who said he was going to end the wars and not start any new ones. And who does he have? He has Bolton. They keep setting things up to try to send us into Iran. And I got to say, I mean, look, Obama won by being against the Iraq War, against Hillary. And what do they do as soon as they get into office? No, we'll depose. We'll stage a coup in Libya. We had that woman Victoria Nuland, Secretary of State, staging a coup in the Ukraine. What is it with politicians? Stop taking us to war. We want you to care about America.
And Tulsi Gabbard was the most searched politician on Google after the debate, which is interesting because I think a lot of people didn't know about her going into it.
Yes.
All right.
And she was good looking.
As we close out our show, our director/DJ Francis suggested this song. It's from Lizzo. It's called Water Me, because everybody likes to be watered every once in a while, right? We'll be back next week. In the meantime, a happy 4th of July to everybody next week, my favorite holiday. Thanks for watching The Issue.
I think I need a wash ray, press rain, give me that sweet tea. I think I'm playing. I need it all night.